Wow.
Welcome back to WFPJ Radio. I'm DJ Cool Guy Voice. We're looking for the worst thing you've ever done. Winner gets a pair of Coldplay tickets for tonight's show. Right now, someone has to beat cheating on your pregnant wife at your wedding. Let's go to the lines. Hello, caller. What do you got? Hey, DJ Cool Guy Voice. It's Paul. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I started a bad movie podcast with my friend, and he really hates puppets. So I keep picking movies with lots of puppets in them just to piss him off. Hold on a second. Stop the music. Wait, we gotta stop everything right here, folks. This is the most disgusting, irresponsible, sick, and twisted thing I have ever heard of, sir. I think we've got a winner! Really? Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Tim hates Coldplay. This is going to be so amazing. All right. Sounds like Tim's going to have a terrible time. Let's get you back to some music. Here's Wang Chung. Welcome to another episode of Good Times and Bad Movies. I'm Paul Ireland. Joining me as always is my lovely co-host, Tim, the Puppet Master Morrison. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Paul. Yeah, I'm kind of the opposite of a puppet master. I really don't like puppets.
No.
And we are doing another puppet movie.
Yes, I know. This is really exciting. I'm sorry, Tim. I'm really sorry to do this to you, but this is going to be a really fun episode for me. We are doing 2018's Happy Time Murders from H Brothers, VVS, STX, TMP, Black Bear, and Henson Alternative.
Yeah, it's a lot of people came together to make this movie.
Yeah, well, I think there probably wasn't a lot of money in the market for a weird puppet noir film, I guess, is what this is sort of is.
Yeah, an adult puppet noir film.
Very adult.
This movie is not for kids.
No, that is 100% correct, actually. But you know what? Maybe we should explain to people what Happy Time Murders is all about, in case no one's ever seen this. So we'll give you a quick synopsis here. Happy Time Murders. When a puppet cast of 90s children's television show begin to get murdered one by one, a disgraced LAPD detective turned private eye puppet takes on the case.
So I watched this movie today for the very first time.
Oh, this is amazing.
In a lot of ways, like kind of as we're talking about it, even just going over it here at the very beginning, I'm still like, wow, this is a weird one.
This is great. Hot off the presses. We're going to get Tim's thoughts on this. I love this. This is great. So you really don't have time to marinate in this. This is just stream of conscious. I love this. This is going to be tremendous. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to relive it once over today again.
Yeah, honestly, just another quick thing here. This is one of those movies when we first said we're going to do a podcast, this is one of the first things I wrote down, I remember. And I've been driving to the hoop for so long to try to get you to do this. And I'm so happy that you finally cracked. So thank you, Tim, in advance. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
No need to be sorry. It's still fun. This movie's also headed by the Henson Group. Jim Henson, the guy who created Kermit the Frog and I think pretty much most of the characters from Sesame Street, as well as all the Muppet movies and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies. And he also played Jim Henson's son. Brian Henson is the one who directed this movie. And he played the Goblin in the Labyrinth movie.
What? The Hoblin Goblin? What's a Hoblin Goblin?
I'm not sure which character, which Muppet he was in the Labyrinth, because there was just so many.
So he was a background Muppet.
Yeah.
Okay, right on. Fair enough. Okay, there's your connection to this movie. That's awesome. There you go. It's another puppet connection, Tim.
Yes.
And again, I'm sorry I keep making you watch puppet movies, but there is something about this. I know that you hate it. And I guess it's a little bit of Schadenfreude. There's something about this that I love. I love making you squirm through this. So I'm actually really looking to hear your take on this.
Yeah. I'll let you know for sure here if you want to get right into it. Because, yeah, I don't want to give too much away right now.
All right, this is going to be great. All right, Tim, so what do you say? Let's crack the case.
So this movie starts with an overhead shot of Los Angeles, and we have a narration by our main character here, our protagonist, which his name is Phil Phillips. He is a blue puppet, approximately 4 feet tall, I think. All the puppets in this world have legs. You don't actually see any kind of like the little poles and stuff that you're used to seeing with like Kermit the Frog and stuff. I think they're all CGI'd out. But in this world, it's like basically your regular Los Angeles. However, there's a minority of Muppets or puppets. I'm not sure if that word is interchangeable or not, but I'm going to use them both here and there.
Yeah, we don't want to cause offense to the Muppet people.
Yeah. So, in this world, there's a minority of puppets that just like they're everywheres. Basically, like on Sesame Street. Only these are really crude ones, and they seem like they're subjugated to prejudice and looked down on by society. Humans could not care less about Muppets, and they're just in the way, and no one wants to tolerate their silliness because they're all silly, except for our protagonist. I guess he is silly. He's full of silly things, actually. So while Philip's narrating in here, we kind of see clips of different Muppets and stuff getting sort of picked on. One gets his eye pulled out. He's dancing for money, and these kids come over, and they basically just yank his eye out. And you see some other Muppets getting frisked along the street by police cops. Phil Phillips here is the only Muppet cop in the world, I guess. He's the first and only Muppet cop. However, he's a former Muppet cop. He's the first and last Muppet cop. Oh my gosh. It sounds so weird saying Muppet cop. So he's going into his office here. He beats up the kids that pulled out the eye of this dancing Muppet here.
Well, the guy calls him a sock, and apparently in this world, sock is a slur to the puppet people. So fair enough. I don't know. He just felt like he needed to punch him in the face. I think Phil should be better than that. He's an adult, even if he is a soft puppet. You know, what do you think? Here's a question: what do you think it's like getting punched by a puppet? Would that hurt? Even a puppet's really strong. It's still felt and it's still stuffing in there because when you.
I'm gonna say it doesn't hurt because I noticed that we just see a shots of Phil's feet stomping on this other guy. So he's not. I don't think we see him punch too many. I could be wrong, but I don't think he actually punches too many people. At least that aren't Muppets. Muppets that punch each other, they can hurt each other. But it doesn't appear as though Muppets are capable of a lot of harm to humans.
I guess so. I guess maybe, if you get caught in the corner of the eye with a hard stitch or something, I feel like that probably like, ow, that's my eye, man. What was that? So, so anyways, yeah, he kind of savages. He straightens him up a bit, I guess, regardless of how you feel about it. It's a Muppet, whatever, folks. It's a movie. He punches some kids in the face and walks into his office.
So when he gets into work, he's talking to his receptionist here, who's played by Maya Rudolph. She is a human in this movie, and she asks him about how the morning went. And I guess we see a flashback here. Before Phil came into his office, he was at a parking garage undercover and busted some puppet poachers. These are some humans that steal Muppets' feet and have them on a chain, and they sell them on the streets because they're lucky feet. That is kind of funny. It's so silly that it's kind of funny, but we'll see here as we go on, the Muppet humor is like relentless. At first, I think this is actually kind of funny.
Oh, he just crushes these poachers. He pulls out a crowbar and just beats them mercilessly with this thing. And then he puppet stomps this one guy in the groin repeatedly. It's hilarious. And then you get this amazing shot, where he's just hammering his groin with this wingtip. And it's just like, wow. Phil is ruthless. He's a man in the streets. Real hard-nosed puppet detective. This is great.
So, anyways, he's back at the office now, and there's a girl who comes in who wants him to enlist his help, his services. She's being blackmailed for $350,000 because she has a condition called I'm a sexual or sexual IMA, something like that. And he asks what that is, and she says that's because I'm gonna go at anything that's beside me. Did I get that right?
Something. It's pretty close. That's a nice, polite version of what she says. Yeah, because this little puppet girl is pretty raw. Basically, it's I guess in the real world we would call that like a sex addict is what this puppet is. A puppet sex addict. I don't know if maybe she's addicted to puppet sex or if it's people and puppets, but definitely puppet sex. I think that's you could lock that one in. That's 100% guaranteed.
Yeah, this movie is also relentless on the sex jokes. Like I think there's a lot of things that make this an adult comedy movie, but this is really heavy on the sex.
This is not a Muppet movie. This is not Kermit. This is not, oh, hi, everybody. This is not that. This is, hi, let me show you my balls.
Yes, exactly. That's an exact quote from the movie.
So this little sex addict puppet, Sandra, she basically hands Phil a note. And that's how we know that she's being extorted. It's sort of, the classic kidnapper, extortionist kind of note where it's just little bits of pieces of paper from magazines cut together to paste a sentence. And it says, give me a bunch of money by this time or I'm going to tell everybody. So, she leaves the office and Phil's looking at the note and, he's a detective. He's in the office looking at this thing and his little puppet spidey sense goes off here. And he goes, I recognize the letter on this. And it's a P. And so we kind of cut over now to I guess it's a puppet sex shop is what we're about to walk into. So brace yourself, folks, for what is about to happen.
Yeah, this place is called Vinny's Puppet Pleasureland. So Phil here, he goes in here to check things out. He knows the guy on the counter. He basically looks like a vulture or something.
The most disturbing, ugliest, creepy vulture you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah, he's a very ugly Muppet bird. He looks like something out of Labyrinth, actually. He walks out from this curtain, and behind him, on like, I don't know what you call like a surgical bed or whatever, is this cow that's like tied down, and he's tied down on his back. There's an octopus above him, basically milking him really, really, really hard. And there's milk just like squirting all over the place. It looks like it's a little bit of anarchy back there. The cashier here, he just explains that all the milk's gone sour, so they're using it for something else. Oh. So they're videotaping this and selling it because there's a market for this stuff, I guess. So he closes the curtain. It's a little bit not as noisy now. And Phil is granted access to go out back and, I guess, check out some magazines and stuff.
So here's a question. I just thought about this now because first time watching this with somebody willingly, and they want to discuss this or they have to discuss this with me. So here's a question I just thought of. Because there's a vulture. We just clearly saw there was a cow and an octopus and some weird thing going on there.
Look, I know where you're going with this, and I was thinking about this.
Well, I'm just wondering, is there because Phil's a person.
Yeah.
And these guys are animals. So are all the puppets the same? Or is there puppet animals and puppet people? And are they different from each other there? Is that like a different ethnicity within puppets themselves?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because while he's in here in the video store, he bumps into a guy he knows who's embarrassed to be in there. It's this rabbit named
Bumbly?
Oh, yeah, Bumbly Rabbit. And Phil bumps into him and knocks his stash of videos out of his hand. And as he's picking up, we see one. It's called Chicks with Big Asses. And it's actual chickens with big asses. So this is chicken porn. And I guess they're Muppets. What? And I had the same thought as well. What the hell? What is happening? And, it was questions like this that really, I had a really hard time paying attention to what this movie was actually about. Like the story of it. Like as we're going through this, Paul is going to be kind of walking me through a little bit of why things happened. Because like when you got cows being milked hard by octopuses and you got a rabbit dropping his stash of chicken porn, it makes it really tough to focus on the conversations that are actually taking place while this is going on.
There's a lot of stuff going on in the background. You're 100% right. It's just a whole other world. Their attention to detail, I guess, it's good for them. But yeah, it's like, here's a question that just crossed my mind too while we were talking about this. Is that like, so if they're puppets and they're animals, are they puppets? Is it a different ethnicity? Or is it bestiality porn at that point? Do you know what I mean? Like, are they puppets? Like what? We probably shouldn't discuss this any further.
Oh, well, so yeah. And I think we're identifying one of the big problems with this movie is that their dependence on the sex jokes and stuff. It's so much that like, You start wondering weird things like this. And as he's going down the hall, Phil here, there's a human chained to a bed with this Muppet cat lipping him.
There's a lot going on in this. Yeah. But I think we forgot to mention real quick here too. The reason why he's going in the back and looking at these magazines is because this letter is part of a very specific magazine, and he has a record. Apparently, this vulture has a record of everybody who's bought this magazine. So Phil is going to go in the back and look and see, I guess, who's bought it, and that's going to be his sort of. It's going to at least narrow down his potential list of suspects as to who's sending Sandra this letter.
While Phil's out back, we kind of see on a security camera there's a person in a trench coat that walks in with, I guess, a shotgun. And he walks in and he points it at the rabbit. A lot of liquid starts pouring down from under the rabbit's trench coat, and it's sparkly purple. I don't know what it is. I don't want to sit here and think about it either too much. But I just have to describe it because it's so weird. So then, while that's happening, the vulture pulls out a pistol, points it at the guy, and says, or points it at the shooter and says, "Freeze." And the shooter turns around and just blows this vulture's head off. And then he turns around, and the rabbit gets so scared or aroused, I don't know, that he starts laying eggs. And they're like the Easter Bunny eggs.
Yeah, so this mysterious figure just kind of lays waste to everybody else there. The that cow and the octopus, they stop milking each other for a second, and they come out, and then he just blows them away. And when you see them get blown away too, there's just a lot of stuffing. It's like if you shot a teddy bear, is what I'm assuming is what this is. They explode, stuffing goes everywhere. And this person just turns again and fires and blows up the little bunny rabbit, the poor little rabbit, buying weird, creepy porn. And then this person just runs out of the store, and that's all you see.
Yeah, then when Phil comes from out back, he sees stuffing everywhere. And to him, this is just, a gruesome sight. No sooner, all the cops are there. They got forensics and stuff. And we're introduced to, I'll just call her Edwards. This is Melissa McCarthy's character. She is a human, and she is Phil's former sidekick on the cop team. She's a cop. Her and Phil have a checkered past. They have a little bit of history. They don't like each other, and they just start rifling jokes at each other. That's kind of where the scene ends. Now we're treated to this commercial for the old TV show called The Happy Time Gang. It's a, I don't know, it's a house full of Muppets and one human. And we see one of the stars of the show is Larry Shenanigans Phillips. He is Phil's brother. And I guess he's had a pretty good life as a Muppet compared to most Muppets. And he's had a lot of procedures done to make his skin lighter. He's a Muppet that's trying to look as human as possible.
Yeah, he's got fake teeth put in his mouth, which is hilarious because he's like, no puppet's got teeth. What are you doing? And then he's bleached his skin. He's changed his nose. Like he even says at one point he actually gave himself a butthole or something like that too, or something.
Phil is kind of accusing him of not accepting himself as a Muppet and just wanting to be more human. Larry does not agree. And, with that said, Larry seems to have a happy life.
Yeah, actually, Larry's really excited because what's happened is the Happy Time Gang has now gone into syndication. So that means big bucks for everybody. About $10 million to split between all the cast members is what he kind of tells Phil in this scene right here. So he's really excited. He's going to get a ton of money. He's living the high life because everybody still remembers that he's, Officer Larry Shenanigans. He's this fun guy. And he still gets stopped everywhere. And even Fortune Feimster stops him here in the cafe and gets a picture with him or whatever. It's pretty awesome.
Fast forward to the night now, and Larry Shenanigans is in a hot tub with this girl, a human girl. They seem to be having a good time. They're watching a movie. She decides to go in and mix some drinks or something. And while she's in there, we kind of see someone else opening the door and letting dogs onto the property. Because I guess they're Larry's still outside in the hot tub. And these 3 dogs come ripping through and they grab Larry by the arm and just rip him up to pieces. And that is the death of Larry. Puppets, by the way, I should have mentioned already, the puppets are terrified dogs because, dogs love to chew up things.
The best part is, too, these aren't even big dogs. These are Boston Terriers and a Chihuahua or something. It's just these little guys are coming in and they just grab Larry and just rip the stuffing out of this guy in 2 seconds. It's crazy, yeah. If you were a puppet, how much danger your life would be in apparently at all times. Even just getting stains, what would happen there? If you spill some drink on yourself.
Well, they probably don't use soap. They probably use actual laundry detergent to wash.
Why isn't he wasn't wet though when he came out, right? He was kind of dry. Why wouldn't his body absorb water?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of questions there. How does a puppet even sit in the water? You know,
Yeah, I don't know.
there is one part that I did find a little bit funny when the girlfriend, she grabbed Larry's leg to try and save him from the dogs, and his leg ripped off, and she held it up and screamed and threw it away because she was reacting as if it was like a human limb or something.
The carnage, it's too much for her. Yeah, there you go. But so she runs out of there and presumably calls the police because the next thing you see is they're bagging and tagging the dogs. That's the murder weapon. this little puppy. This cute little puppy comes out, and Phil is just beside himself. He is so upset here. He tries to attack the poor little dog. As he collects himself, Melissa McCarthy walks in. And this brings me to my next clip. I guess our first clip of the podcast here. So to set the stage, Melissa McCarthy, she kind of makes a joke about this whole place looking like a piñata party. Phil doesn't take that well, obviously this being his brother, so he attacks her. They fall into the hot tub, and a brawl ensues. And I just want to play you a real choice excerpt from this fight here.
When they were fighting, they're fighting in the hot tub, the same hot tub that Larry Shenanigans was killed in. And he bites her breast, and then she proceeds to turn him upside down and bite his penis.
His felt puppet junk.
And so then they're sitting with each other afterwards, kind of being scolded by Stanley from the office, their lieutenant.
What world is this movie in? Like, this is so crazy.
Edwards and Phil are both going to be working together now on this case. And their first stop is a famous puppet agent who basically, I think that he probably made the cast for the Happy Time Gang puppets. And through talking to him and investigating a little bit, they basically realized that there is a new deal where the show Happy Time Gang is going to syndication. And there's $10 million to split between the cast of characters, and there's a clause in it that basically says whoever's not alive, it's just divvied amongst the people who are alive. So they're thinking maybe somebody's after that money. They decide to investigate each cast member one at a time, and their first stop is going to Skid Row.
Looks like they're going to start off their investigation by meeting one of the cast members, Coach Lyle. And looks like he has fallen from the lofty heights of the Happy Time Gang world into this world of drugs. Well, I guess we're not really drugs. They're just like sugar. I guess that's the puppet drug in this movie. It's not really heroin or cocaine. It seems like they do sugar.
Yeah, it's different grades of sucrose.
Here's a question then again. Do puppets do they do real drugs? And if they do human drugs, is that worse for them, or is that harsher on them? Like if they smoked weed, or if they took like mushrooms or something?
Oh, that's a good question, because Melissa McCarthy does some of their drugs, their sugar, and it seems to have a very heavy effect on her. So I don't know, you could be right. It might actually have an effect on Muppets, but in any case, even if the other hard drugs out there do work for them, their main interest is sugar.
Yeah, again, the puppets. It seems like the puppets really like the sugar because it gets them really excitable and happy. And it's like, isn't that like cocaine? Isn't that methamphetamine? All these amphetamines, Well, yeah, it doesn't even matter. But they're gonna go down to I guess it's like a puppet gang warehouse bar where Lyle is. And I guess he's a gang leader of this puppy gang, it looks like.
Melissa McCarthy here is kind of getting chummy with all these other Muppets. This is a pretty grimy place. It looks like it's in a basement, basically. And they insist that she try some of their sugar. They say it's the cleanest sugar in town. So while she does one hit of it, one big line of sugar, and she kind of looks like she's dead. But out of nowhere, she just kind of rises back up, and she is into it. She wants another line, and basically starts going hog wild on this sugar.
And can we mention, too, they're snorting this with licorice.
Oh, are they?
Yes.
Oh, that's hilarious. They kind of start getting a little bit mean with Melissa McCarthy because she beats them in a game of, I think they're playing poker. I don't know. It might be some kind of silly Muppet equivalent of poker. However, she has the winning hand, and things get a little tense. And then Melissa McCarthy just goes nuts and beats the crap out of everybody. She's smashing beer bottles, any objects that she can find, and she's tossing Muppets all over the place.
Yeah, again, I guess Muppets have they have people strength or something like that. The puppet equivalent to people strength. So, because it seems like they're kind of throwing her around a little bit too in this whole thing. But it doesn't matter because she pulls a gun on them now on the Russian dog. I guess is what he is. He's a bulldog. This is greasy looking puppet with drool all over his face. So while she's got the gun pointed at the dog's face, she grabs the plate of, I guess, the sugar cocaine thing, and she runs off to the bathroom with it, and she goes to just blast a bunch of lines in the bathroom. I guess just do a bunch of rails of this purple sparkly of cocaine sugar thing. Phil is out in the parking lot in the back alley, I should say, with Lyle, and they're talking to each other, and all of a sudden this SUV rolls up. I guess it's like a puppet SUV. It seems like maybe it's like a Power Wheels Jeep or something, and it's got tinted out windows. And all of a sudden, one of the windows goes down, and a gun comes out and blows away Lyle right in the alley. And then there's a whole bunch of gunfight that ensues here, and the SUV, the little puppet SUV, it runs off. I guess drives away.
Yeah, it leaves. It's a drive-by shooting on this one of the other cast members of the Happy Time Gang.
That's right in front of Phil's eyes. There's Melissa McCarthy doing rails in the bathroom, and she bumps her head on the ceiling too because she's a person. They're in a puppet apartment. I guess this is a place that's made for puppets. The ceilings are low. They're like 3-foot ceilings.
I didn't even notice that. See, some of these things are kind of cute.
Just in the bathroom though. That's weird though, right? The other place, I guess it's more of an open concept. It's like maybe not like the equivalent to us, like a 12-foot ceiling. It's like an 8-foot ceiling to them or something,
So now Phil is kind of starting to look a little bit suspicious because he just happens to be present each time a Happy Gang member is killed. So we kind of see that Stanley, the lieutenant there, has his eye on him and Edwards. So back at Phil's office now, Sandra is there waiting for him, the nymphomaniac puppet that has basically sent him on this wild goose chase of finding out who is blackmailing her. And, well, basically they go at it. She hits on him. There's a lot of sexual innuendos at play. And then once they start going at it, they go at it. She jumps on him. He carries her around and he slams her into a wall. I guess that maybe because they're Muppets, their sex is like they can be a lot more aggressive without worrying about hurting each other or something. Because he is swinging her around like a book bag that you just don't care about. He is like smashing her into a counter, putting her on the counter, and her head is like smashing through plates, cups, everything, like just making a mess of this place. And We'll just say that they're reaching to the climax of this little encounter, and out of nowhere, Phil just starts spraying silly spray all over the place. Silly string spray. That string in a can, silly stuff. That's going all over the place. And while this is kind of like a funny joke, it goes on for way longer than what you would kind of expect. Like, how long, Paul? Like an actual minute of him just spraying silly stuff around. And then it stops and you think it's over. And then he just starts spraying more silly stuff. And yeah, that's it. So we just got an explicit sex scene with puppets.
Was it Tim or was it a shaving cream cam discharging accidentally? You decide.
So yeah, that's just it's a very strange thing, and I guess like they really went so far with the adult humor in this that they decided to include a sex scene.
You know what? They were like, Team America got one. Why not us?
Yeah, it was at this point in the movie, like this is around the halfway mark. I started getting tired of the movie a little bit because it's just like the puppet stuff is like just so much of it. It's so much puppet sex. And if they're not having sex, they're talking about sex.
Yeah, or doing drugs or something else. Yeah, this is just like, it seems like everybody Phil is, he's in a hard knock life here. He's hanging out with all the degenerates, He's got to go amongst them. Get in the sewers, fight the people, This is gritty. This is real life, Tim. This is real puppet, real life.
Raw puppets.
That's right. And what happens is after, I guess, this, I will say, a silly string can exploding, it looks like Staley shows up, and I guess he's going to arrest Phil. So Phil jumps out the window and he runs away. And I guess we're led to believe that he seems to think that, maybe Phil knows something, or he is potentially the murderer.
So Phil decides to go meet his old ex named Jenny because she was one of the human characters on the show of the Happy Time Gang. He goes to the stripper bar where Jenny's working, and she's performing on stage for a bunch of rabbits and proceeds to feed the rabbits carrots, and then she shoves the carrot down her throat. That's the end of her set. She is going to sit down with Phil now and kind of just have a little bit of a quick awkward reunion. And she says that she's not worried about anything happening to her. While that's going on, Melissa McCarthy is looking for another cast member. His name is Goofer, and he is this tiny little Muppet who is really down on his luck. He seems to be an addict in this rundown house with other dirty Muppets laying around.
Oh yeah, he is falling on hard times. He's like, it's almost like kind of like Beaker and Fozzie Bear. He's a combination of the two. And maybe I guess Gonzo a little bit. He's really creepy looking. And he's really dirty, this poor guy. Sugar addict. He's all smacked up.
He's a very filthy stuffed animal.
Yes, maybe we should just play a little clip here, Tim, to just illustrate to people the level of hard times that Goofer has fallen upon.
I just want to know what you know about the Happy Time murders.
Oh, Goofer give you a happy time. Oh, for 50 cents, I'll suck your dick.
Oh, wow. Yeah, this puppet really likes his sugar.
This poor guy. I guess he's a drug addict and I guess a puppet sex worker. Is that what's going on here? Or is he just a freelance sometimes, Tim? I don't know. This poor guy.
At least sugar is cheap, right? 50 cents. That's pretty low.
It's a dark world these puppets live in, though. Melissa McCarthy decides that she's just going to do some puppet drugs on this dirty mirror in this weird, sketchy crack house. Okay. And she's going to snort a bunch of weird puppet. I guess it's cocaine or something. And she goes home and crashes for the night, it looks like.
Back at the strip club, Jenny and Phil are saying their goodbyes, and Jenny gets in her car. As Phil walks away, her car explodes. Jenny was just assassinated. And then Phil decides that it's time to run because the cops are going to be looking at him. And he decides that the only safe place he can go is Melissa McCarthy's apartment. And Melissa McCarthy is passed out because, she was up late doing a lot of sugar. So Phil decides to clean her apartment. While he's cleaning her apartment, we're treated to a flashback, and we find out what tore these two apart along many years ago, I guess. Basically, there was a hostage situation where Melissa McCarthy was the hostage, and a Muppet was pointing a gun at her head, and Phil had his gun drawn, and he was hoping to make one shot and shoot this Muppet and save Melissa McCarthy. However, when he shoots, he misses, and the bullet ricochets off of a wall and kills a Muppet across the street. It's this father and this Muppet, father and daughter, and the father is killed. That's why they split up.
That's really sad. That's really dark too. I mean, I thought it was hilarious that the perpetrator that he was trying to shoot looked like a caveman, but had these really hairy arms. This puppet, it's hilarious. But it looks like there's a bit of a misfire there, and he killed this dad, and the poor little girl is freaking out beside her dad. And it looks like Melissa McCarthy's been injured in this whole thing too, and she gets taken to a puppet hospital for some reason because she's bleeding out, I guess. This puppet doctor basically at gunpoint has to take Phil's one of his kidneys or something and transplant it into Melissa McCarthy. Yeah, and that's why she can do all these weird puppet drugs, I guess. So Melissa McCarthy wakes up from her weird Muppet drug slumber thing, and she's had a hard night. She partied, and the phone rings, and it's Stanley from the office, and he informs her that Goober's dead. And they kind of decide at that point that they're just going to take off and go out to the middle of nowhere because she got a tip again about the weird cousins the weird puppet cousins that make out with each other. So she's going to head off with Phil in the desert. And I guess we're going to go to where the hills have eyes. Because, I mean, that's pretty much what happens here. She rolls up to this, I guess I'll call it loosely, it's like a compound in the desert here. And they don't see anything that's going on here. They're like, there's no one around. What's going on? What's up here? And all of a sudden they hear this weird shrieking noise. And that's a cue to them. They're like, there's something going on. Someone's in distress. We need to go and find out what's going on.
They find two children Muppets. One has one eye and one has three eyes. They're just screaming at each other. They're looking in the mirror and screaming.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Blair Witch thing. They're just standing in the corner looking at nothing and just shrieking. You know, like this is The Hills Have Eyes. This is basically the product of that's happening. You know what this is, folks? This is what happens when your family tree doesn't have any branches. You know, it's just a trunk.
So Philip goes down the hall to another bedroom and finds two Muppets. These two cousins that we were talking about. Their heads are ripped off of their bodies in their beds, and so they're dead now. And they see this killer running out of the house, and I guess he manages to escape somehow, but Melissa McCarthy and Phil, they run out a different door, and LAPD are there waiting for them. And they have their guns drawn. Now Phil is under arrest because, once again, he is at the scene of another murder. Probably, I think that's the fifth or sixth time.
I guess so. Is this weird, though? There's probably about, well, actually, so there's 3 cars right now out front of this place. The FBI showed up to arrest a murderer. These 3 FBI vehicles are parked probably within a 3 to 5 foot span of each other. Like, no one spread out to cover any part of this building, just the front door. That's where the guy's going to run out. All right.
Now, back at the police station, Phil is being kind of interrogated, and Sandra comes in, the person who hired Phil, and she is basically telling lies and saying that Phil is responsible for these murders and that she couldn't stop it. So now him and Melissa McCarthy know that they've been double-crossed. However, they have no proof. They have no evidence to prove it. So Melissa McCarthy and Maya Rudolph, Maya Rudolph's name is Bubbles. She is Phil's receptionist. They decide to do a little bit of digging themselves to see if they can't help Phil out. And they go to Sandra's home, and they find this secret door, which leads to this room where everything, her whole mastermind plan is written out. As far as who she's going to kill, all the different Happy Time gang murders, everything's there. All the evidence they need is there. While they're looking for evidence in here, they see a picture with Sandra and her father. And it turns out that her father is actually the person that Phil accidentally killed when he was trying to save Melissa McCarthy many years prior. So while Sandra is looking to get all of the money from the Happy Time Murders show, this is also a giant revenge plot to get back at Phil here. There's also a little cassette player, like kind of recorder or whatever, sitting there and has a button that says push me. Maya Rudolph decides to push it and a voice says kaboom, and then the whole place explodes. So all of their evidence is gone. And at this point in the movie, I was like, okay, so what was the point of all that? Like we just spent like 15 minutes looking for all this evidence, and then they just destroy the evidence right there. So they're right back to square one where we were 15 or 20 minutes ago. So Melissa McCarthy now has another plan. She needs to get Phil out so that he can so that they can team up and solve this case. Get the evidence they need from Sandra. So she shoots Phil in the arm, and that gives him an excuse to be rushed to the hospital. I'm not sure how they explain that to the cops because they just kind of gloss over it. And while they're in the ambulance together, Phil's in the back and Melissa McCarthy is there with him. She gives him a lockpick to get the cuffs off. It might even be a key for that matter. I don't know, but it looks like he's kind of going at it with a lockpick. So my only question about this is if she had a lockpick the whole time, or a key. Why bother shooting him in the arm to get him in an ambulance?
I think she's got to get him out of the police building, right? You can't just walk this guy out of police custody, right? At least, you can't let him know that you're in on it, right?
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Right? You can't show those cards. Not yet. That's right. Because they kind of just hijack the ambulance here and they drive off down to the Santa Monica airport because they're going to catch Sandra here as she's getting on the plane.
So here at the airport, it's revealed how Sandra is going to get the money, all the money from the Happy Time Murder Show. It turns out Jenny, Phil's former lover, who was thought to have blown up in the car a little bit earlier, is actually alive, and that was a hoax to fool him because her and Sandra are actually a couple, and they're going to run off with the money together. Sandra decides that's not going to happen and decides to smack Jenny in the face with this bag and knocks her out cold. And then this giant fight ensues.
So once Sandra sort of double crosses Jenny and I guess files for divorce, we'll say, it looks like she tells her goons to grab Phil, grab Melissa McCarthy, take him outside and, deal with them. So she grabs her bags and jumps on the plane. And the goons grab Phil and they actually try to throw him in the jet engine of this plane. And he's hanging on for dear life now. And Melissa McCarthy, she's got to go toe to toe with these guys. And somehow I guess she's from the rough streets of LA fighting Muppets. So she fights these security guards, beats them up and, gets Phil off the jet engine just in time, gets their cuffs off them and they go inside the plane and look for Sandra and they can't see her anywhere. And then what happens is like Sandra just jumps out, like Phil says, like a spider monkey, jumps on her, wraps her head and her crotch around Melissa McCarthy now. And she's kind of strangling her and she gets her on the stairs of the plane and she's got her in, I guess, sort of, it's the same situation that Phil was in previously with the Muppet Once Upon a Time. And it's the same kind of thing that's going on with Melissa McCarthy. So Phil this time decides to take the shot and he says, let's go for it. And so he shoots the puppet, Sandra. He shoots her. He blows the stuffing right out of her head again. Yeah,
Sandra is dead, and Phil got his redemption. He saved Melissa McCarthy. It's kind of funny that I don't know if it's funny, but he killed her father accidentally in the same situation. And this time he killed his daughter on purpose.
To be fair, she had a gun pointed at somebody, so.
He had no other option this time. And I guess he did a good job. He saved Melissa McCarthy's life. Now they're kind of recuperating in the back of an ambulance. Phil decides he's finally going to ask out his receptionist on a date. I didn't even realize that was like a thing in this movie, but yeah, okay. So they're together now, and Phil is also reinstated as an officer. He has his badge back, and everybody lives happily ever after, and that's the Happy Time Murders.
And 15 minutes of credits roll.
I was so happy because I was paying attention to the time. I was like, how much is left in this movie? And once I saw that there was like 20 minutes left, and I was like, okay, there's probably like 10 more minutes or so of this. Maybe like, 8 minutes of credits. But no, there's actually like 15 or 16 minutes of credits. So it ended up ending like really quick for me. This wasn't too painful.
Well, now we're here, Tim. Yeah, I guess we can finally talk about Happy Time Murders. So let's hear some of your thoughts on this weird puppet show now that it's kind of hot off the press for you.
Well, I think that this was like a cool idea, and I feel like the writers seem like they really misfired with the comedy in this movie, because the movie's not that funny. Like there's so many jokes. Like Paul and I kind of touched on quite a few different funny things. There's so many jokes in this movie that don't land, and like I can only tolerate so much sexual conversations and innuendos and imagery, I guess, as far as puppets go. So in some way, I can't say I like this movie. This movie isn't very good, but it's good for them for trying, I guess. Like I expected this to be more painful than it was, but it wasn't. There is something. There's good ideas in here. It's just, in my opinion, it's just executed really poorly.
Yeah, this is. But I guess when when you're milking cows with weird butter stuff coming out of udders, you've hit a new level of puppetry for Jim Henson, I think. And maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. That's for some people to decide. I would say that's probably not the greatest. So there's a lot of weird humor in this movie. It's already a niche audience when you have a puppet movie, but when you have a puppet movie with this crazy Team America level of gratuitous sex and weird gritty puppet world stuff, yeah, you're right. There's so many questions that I have about how this all works.
That's it. I didn't enjoy having to think about interspecies sex amongst puppets. Because like there's just so many innuendos about it that it's like I'm wondering about this, and after a little bit I'm thinking like I really don't want to think about this anymore because it's just so weird. It's just so strange and odd. Like I know it's the first time that they've gotten to do an adult humor puppet movie. However, I don't think you need to go all in on the puppet aspect. Like especially if you're mixing it with humans. Like there's so many humans in this movie that like. Why'd they lean so hard on the puppet humor? Like none of the actual humans in this movie were funny at all. And there wasn't really any humorous interactions between humans and puppets. And I feel like that's like a missed opportunity. Like they talked about the differences between the puppets and the humans, and they apparently have like a lot of conflict and stuff. And like, I think that could have been more funny to explore. But they just went the raunchy and weird, deviant route with the puppets.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's something I thought about in this movie too was the presence of whatever Stanley. I'll call him Stanley's movie, the police chief. I forget what his name is in this actual movie, but there's sometimes he was narrating and stuff and talking about things. It just reminded me of Threat Level Midnight when Michael Scott reveals at the end that he is somehow his Stanley's voice. I didn't really make any sense there, but that's kind of what this whole movie was. This was just a weird, crazy movie. And, it's like when we watched The Labyrinth, again, a weird puppet movie, but for different reasons. In that one, we were kind of like, I can't believe they made a puppet butthole in a kid's movie. And we're like, that was pretty crazy. This place was farting and stinking and being so gross, but,
Oh, yeah, that was nothing compared to this.
They didn't break out the silly string.
No.
Like they did in this one.
No.
Yeah,
no, it was. Yeah, it's a very, very, very strange movie, and I like what you said. Like they're already trying to appeal to a very niche audience. I just feel like they could have toned it down in terms of just the puppet jokes. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I don't know how to fix this movie. Maybe this idea is just like wrong, and they should have had like a different idea all around. Or a different story.
Yeah, well, it's like, is everybody in this world just some crazy, weird puppet sex person thing? And they're like all on drugs? Like, 'cause this is what I was thinking too. Because I was thinking about sugar and how much these guys are addicted to sugar. Sugar's in like a lot. It's in a lot of things that we eat. Like probably, unfortunately, most things that we eat these days, raw or processed or concentrated or whatever it is. All that stuff. I don't know things, but there's a lot of sugar and stuff. So if they had like a Hostess cupcake, would that get them high? Would that give them a buzz? Is it like a coffee? And this is like like little bits of coffee. This is like, it's like now doing cocaine instead of just having a coffee or something, I guess.
Hard to say. I mean, they like the pure sugar too, so.
Yeah, and it's like, well, if they see sugar at a store, is that like if I get raw sugar at a store, is that the same?
I'm just going to say that's probably locked up in this world, but.
You might be right, actually.
Yeah, I think so.
You might be right. You have to think this whole world over again. And then how would it all work with the high shelves? Would there be high shelves? I guess so, because they really don't seem to care.
Yeah, and see, like, that would have been really cool to explore those different kinds of things. But this movie was just all about sex. It was all about puppets and sex. That's the core of this movie.
Yeah, it was really like it seemed like it was making fun of like noir, sort of detective movies and those, those hard-boiled kind of cops. But yeah, it was really sexually aggressive, and yeah, I think they could have done something fun. And maybe you've toned that down a bit and you just had some, you could do some street humor, but yeah, I don't know. Like so there is a bit of missed opportunity there. I think there's an interesting idea here. You could do sort of something else. Maybe not this, maybe not puppet sex. I don't know. But I thought it was hilarious. And I knew that this was going to be really fun to watch. And I knew that you were going to have a really interesting take on this, especially after doing a few of these movies now and noticing there's a bit of a correlation here, it seems like, with puppets and your reaction to these things.
I'm not big on puppets. But these ones are different. I don't like these puppets because they're just sexual deviants. I don't like the fantasy puppets in Labyrinth because they're legitimately scary.
Yeah, that was dark. These are like dark for different reasons. These puppets, all of them on different levels, you know.
Yeah, these are dark puppets.
Yeah, dark. Yeah, maybe we'll leave it there. How's that sound? On a dark note.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it.
So that's it for us in this one. Please, guys, before we go, if you could, whatever you're listening to this on YouTube, if it's iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it is, please give us a second just to rate it, like it. Always helps with us. We appreciate it. And we love you guys. And we're just going to let Larry Shenanigans ask you a question.
Who bent your boner?